Alright. When you cast a spell, give me elusive and stop all enemy spells targeting me. So that's any enemy spell currently targeting him, basically? Yeah, so it's like disjointing, basically.
This is gonna be fun.
See, you almost can't go in for removal against him. Attune. When I'm summoned, refill 1 spell mana. When I'm summoned, refill 1 spell mana, okay.
Sharky, Sharky.
That's weird.
I ain't afraid.
Next strike, create a Chum the Waters.
I'm coming in.
What the fuck is this surfer music? Chum the Waters. I didn't get to see what that did. Oh, it makes something vulnerable that you can just target it. So it makes something vulnerable and then it summons a shark. Okay, let's read what's actually going on here. So Fizz creates a Chum the Waters when he Nexus strikes after he's leveled up. Grant the enemy vulnerable and summon Longtooth, and Longtooth is the 5/1 Overwhelm. And this is not a main deckable card. We can see there's no gem here, so this is purely just off of Chum the Waters. But Chum the Waters is a main deckable card. Presumably, I actually don't think this is Fizz's champ spell. It looks more like this is Fizz's champ spell. Playful Trickster. Remove an attacking ally from combat to rally. Ooh, that's interesting. That's a lot of rally effects. So Fizz basically, initial impressions, he's a 1/2/1. He's kind of like Teemo. He's a 1/2/1 that does elusive stuff. He has the ability to disjoint effects, but he's spell reliant for elusive, which Teemo isn't. His level up condition is easier than Teemo's actually. Oddly enough, it seems like it would be harder, but Teemo's requires like him to stay alive or you to deck build. Whereas this just, you know, you can draw this in the mid game and it'll level. In spell heavy decks, it's a Bilgewater spell synergy card that wants to be like spell spamming. And when he levels up, he basically, I mean, you might as well think of the shark as a challenger almost. It's kind of better. It's like, you don't have to challenge the unit. You can make something vulnerable and then the shark can attack and you can challenge it with anything. So it's like, it's kind of like a better 5/1 challenger. It's like a much better version of Glory Seeker, right? It's like Trifarian Glory Seeker, except instead of having Challenger, it gives something vulnerable. And it has Overwhelm. And it creates it? What does create mean? Does create mean in hand? It does, right? Yeah. So it doesn't... You still have to pay the mana for the Chum the Waters. It just creates a copy of it in hand. So basically, you're just drawing a card that is specifically Chum the Waters. The question is, how good is this card? It's not fleeting? Yeah, it's not fleeting, which is kind of nice. How good is this card? It's basically, I mean, it's like a better Glory Seeker, but it's 4 mana. So, I mean, I should fucking hope it's a better Glory Seeker. It's not a great card at 4 mana. It's a spell, so it's gonna have spell synergy with that kind of deck, which is kind of nice. I don't know, overall, the fact that you have to pay 4 mana, like when he Nexus strikes to be able to summon it is kind of weak. I don't think the payoff for Fizz is really there. It's like his body is fine. Like 1/2/1 that has a couple of potential perks is okay. But like the +1/+1 on flip plus the like just draw a Chum the Waters doesn't seem like really good payoff. Let's look at Playful Trickster. Remove an attacking ally from combat to rally. So it's kind of like a juke. It's like a debate. It's like I'm attacking with all these allies. You get 1 good block, and then I will remove that block to rally. It feels like a very bad Relentless Pursuit, I think. Now, it allows you to remove an attacking ally from combat, which can dodge a trick, but I think for 4 mana, dodging a trick is pretty weak. And the fact that it can only rally during an attack commitment is a really big limitation to rally. It's an adorable card. I kind of like the flavor of it. It's sort of obnoxious. It fits Fizz pretty well. But overall, I don't really think this is going to be that good of a card. Overall, it's like, it's alright. I don't think there's a ton going on with Playful Trickster. Maybe there's like some like way or timing to use it that would be better that I'm not thinking of. Okay, then we've got Bubble Bear. This is the one you guys are saying fucking looks like me. Is this the... Wait, is that Attune? So Attune means you get 1 spell mana when you play it. This little I means elusive. So basically, they've done this as a way to put sort of... I'm gonna say quote-unquote reach in the game. Reach is a mechanic that a lot of Redditors have been asking for existing in this game, which is basically like... It's from Magic, which is the ability to block elusives without being an elusive itself. So having like the 0 attack elusive is effectively that. It sort of costs 2 mana. I'm going to say that's a sort of because Attune is there. I think Attune can be thought of as 0.5 mana overall. What does Attune do? So Attune means when you play it, you get 1 spell mana, which actually is not that strong. A lot of people will look at Attune as saying, well, okay, it's sort of like a 2 mana card, right? Well, there's 2 asterisks there. It's a 2 mana card that you can't play on turn 2, and it's 3 mana if your spell bar is full. If your spell reserve is full, Attune is going to be 3 mana. Straight up, right? Which is actually going to happen a decent amount of the time. So I wouldn't call this 2 mana. Honestly, even 2.5 is a little low. It's probably closer to like 2.6, maybe 2.7. Attune is not that strong of a keyword. I'm going to say 0.6. I think that's kind of where it is in my head. 2.6 mana for basically a 0/6 elusive blocker. Is not gonna fly. Shellshocker, Attune. It's basically a sort of 0 mana 2/1. There have been in the past some like conditional 0 mana 2/1s. The thing that comes to mind the most is Oblivious Islander. Oblivious Islander is like, you know, it's kind of like a conditional 0 mana 2/1 where you can play it on turn 1, and if you target an ephemeral unit, it gets you a point later. This one, it gets you something that you can potentially use the spell mana. I don't think this is going to be very good. I don't think the position for like 0 mana 2/1s really exists much in Runeterra, actually. You don't usually want that kind of thing. And Islander at least gets you like mana cheat if you want to play something early with like ramp. Whereas Shellshocker is like, I feel like the Attune keyword is actually just not that good. Like getting 1 spell mana when you play this is not, I think, great. And then there's Coral Creatures. When I'm summoned to create a random 1-cost spell in hand. So yeah, it's 2 mana. So you can't play it on turn 1. It sort of costs 1 mana, sort of. Again, that's a big sort of. Let's say 1.6. It creates a random 1-cost spell in hand. So that's gonna be... It's like, draw a card. Now, it doesn't say random from any region, which means... It means it's going to be random from the 2 regions that you're in. And one of those regions is gonna be Bilgewater. So... The value of this card is really going to depend on the value of, like, whatever 1-cost spells Bilgewater has, and whatever the 1-cost spells the second region you're in has. I will say that this card is pretty conditional. It might be good in something like Freljord. Like, for example, depending on how good Bilgewater's 1-mana cards are, maybe you could run it in Freljord where you have, like, Brittle Steel and Elixir of Iron. Like, those are pretty decent cards. That could be fine. But you definitely wouldn't be able to run it in something like PNZ, where it's like you're gonna get counterfeit copies or shrooms. So I would say this one seems like, actually, it does have some potential playability. I would say it's like, it's a bit low. I don't see this card as being competitive, but it actually does have a chance if you put it in the right region, and if Bilgewater has good average value on the 1-cost spells. Rummage. Yeah, Rummage is decent in PNZ, but, I mean, the most important thing is you just don't want blanks. And PNZ has at least 2 blanks just right off the bat. Babbling Book. It's sort of like Babbling Book, except not as amazing. Babbling Book is kind of like, is what it is because it's kind of an OP card, right? This is, yeah, a little awkward. 2 mana, 1/2, cast Blade's Edge sounds alright. So, the way to evaluate this card, a really, really important step is actually looking through the regions and looking at all the different 1-mana cards they have access to. At the end of the day, if there is literally even like a 20% blank, the card is dead. And the 20%er is going to be roughly like any one of in a random roll. I think it'll be probably closer to like 15%, depending on like how many 1 costs they have. So literally, I would personally say having 1 blank makes that region out. Period. So that's rough. Freljord looks alright. I mean, they just have Brittle Steel and Elixir of Iron, right? That's pretty sweet. That could be okay. But again, if Bilgewater even has a single blank, then it feels pretty awkward, right? if Bilgewater is blanked out, I don't think we've seen any of Bilgewater's 1 mana spells, right? We've seen Bilgewater having the 0 mana spell. I don't think we've seen a 1 mana from Bilgewater. Blade's Edge from Noxus, but Noxus has Elixir of Wrath and Guile. That's too many blanks. PNZ has too many blanks. Demacia could be okay. Radiant and Chain Vest are kind of okay, but there's no competitive deck that would be able to fit that card in. Like, even Freljord is probably the best one, and that's definitely a stretch, right? Reasonably speaking, a card like this shouldn't really end up being competitive. Obviously, there's some amount of, like, spell synergy, but you're never gonna have enough. You're never gonna have enough spell synergy to send you into running a card that's value is predicated on, like, any amount of RNG. Like, you don't... If you want Chain Vest, just put Chain Vest in your deck. You don't want to, like, risk even, like, a low odds blank is not worth the idea of having, like, a small body at a higher mana point that you can't even play on turn 1, right? That's kind of the awkwardness. Like, if it was just 1 mana, if you could play it on turn 1, it would be a lot better. It's hard to explain how much better it would be if you could play it on turn 1. But the fact that it's, like, it can't come down on turn 1 is pretty awkward. And yeah, that's the new bundle of cards, it looks like. So overall, I think... I don't see too much competitive viability in this bundle overall. I don't want to be... Listen, I hate being like a downer. I know you guys are hyped for new cards, and I'm not saying these cards aren't fun. I'm not saying there's not a lot of cool things you can do. I'm just like... And, you know, I could be wrong. I think Fizz could be alright. There will be decks built around Fizz, and he won't be terrible. Elusives with Fizz. Elusives need... You don't want to be running as many spells there, and Fizz wants you to run a high amount of spells. 1-drop Attune can be competitive. What, Shell Shocker? You think, huh? I could maybe see that. I don't know. I think that with Runeterra, the idea of spell reserve really fundamentally changed, like, what you're looking for in a 1-drop. I think 1-drops in this game kind of have to be OP to be good, because the fact that you can send your spell mana into reserve on turn 1 and 2 is a really, really important comeback mechanic. And I don't think aggro is really strong enough from a meta standpoint to demand the necessity for a 1-drop that isn't inherently OP. I think there's kind of only 2 good 1-drops we've seen in Runeterra. Well, there's 3 in history. And outside of, like, a very narrow aggro list, and there's kind of only been 2 aggro styles. And those are Omenhawk and Fleetfeather Tracker. And the third one is Inspiring Mentor, which got nerfed. Outside of, like, a card that's on a power level like that, I feel like it's really hard to justify 1-drops, especially in, like, a power creep set. I could see it. I could see it. Fizz is alright. Drawing for free is not bad. Like, you don't really mind, like, getting the free value out of these cards. Like, Vulnerable and Longtooth is definitely not a bad effect. It's a shame it doesn't cost 3 mana. If it costed 3 mana, it would be, I mean, first of all, a better card. But it would allow Fizz Heimer to maybe be a bit of a thing. Like, you've already got the spell synergy there, and Heimer likes 3 mana spells. Chum at 4, well, you're getting Chum the Waters a little bit in the late game anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. It's a mana point. You do have the ability to effectively, it is sort of pseudo removal, and Fizz is effectively untargetable, which there could be a decent amount of value in that. I really don't mind Fizz. And there could be some potential with Playful Trickster that I'm not thinking of. But yeah, Fizz if anything, is kind of where I see a bit more of the potential here. What about main decking Chum? I don't think so. Like I said, I mean, Trifarian Glory Seeker is, like, okay, this is a much better Glory Seeker, don't get me wrong. It has spell synergy, it's a 5/1, the Vulnerable is better than Challenger because it gives you options, and it also has Overwhelm itself. So it is a much better Glory Seeker. But Glory Seeker is already a card that is just not really as good as it looks. And the 4 mana point is a little awkward. I don't think it's impossible. This is actually not that bad of a card. This is okay. It can block too. Yeah. That actually ends up not mattering that much with Glory Seeker, because usually the fact that you have Challenger means you don't need to block usually, but yeah, it does matter a bit. Yeah, it's an extra point for sure. It's not terrible. This is, I would say, runnable. Like, people will experiment with it. What else is there with what we can do? Mago, why do you think Shell Shocker has potential? You Shell Shocker into a double float? It's just like, I mean, this card, I can only ever imagine one spot where I would want to play this card, and that is against turn 1 Legion Rearguard or I guess maybe Saboteur. I don't think Saboteur is even a good card. Turn 1, Legion Rearguard on evens is the only spot where I would actually look at a Shell Shocker in my hand and be like, oh, thank God I've got a Shell Shocker in my hand. That's it. And don't get me wrong, it's like, it is a semi-common spot in an aggro meta, but I expect a tune to have synergies, because otherwise it would be dumb to have this keyword instead of text. Okay. Yeah, that's a fair argument. That'd be kind of cool. I mean, presumably you would have to have like some kind of synergy here. Like sending one into spell mana, it doesn't really end up doing that much, right? Otherwise, it's just kind of like sort of a different way of paying mana. Usually when you see an effect like this, like sending into spell mana, it usually means you're gonna have the ability to like run more spells and justify more spells. It's kind of like, I mean, it's the same thing that Eager Apprentice is already doing in the game, right? When I'm summoned, refill 2 spell mana. So it's basically a much better Eager Apprentice. Like, it's a straight upgrade to Eager Apprentice in every way. You can play it on turn 1, and it's like, you can play it when you have 2 banked spell mana, whereas Eager Apprentice you can only play if you have 0 or 1 banked spell mana. It's much better than Eager Apprentice. And I still think it's bad, because Eager Apprentice is like so far below the point of what I would consider playable. This card is so incredibly bad. I think this card misses the bar by a lot. You can stand alone on turn 2, Swim. It's true. Hey, look, listen. You can play some cute things on turn 2 that you kind of couldn't otherwise do. Stand alone on turn 2. Can't argue with that. Fizz standalone is pretty nice. You're getting elusive. You're getting the kind of like dodge immunity. It means he's dodging spells. You have the ability to buff an elusive that inherently is untargetable. I mean, I can see some very toxic things going on there. I can see some very toxic things going on there. Don't give him ideas. It's too late. You guys make a very good point. I think, I mean, the idea of something that can like dodge unit targeting. Fizz standalone. I mean, like, it's so cute. It would be hard to build a deck around. It would be hard for that deck to get there. It's like the idea of taking an elusives or a committal standalone build around concept and going into Bilgewater and cutting Ionia is gonna be hard. Like, standalone Fizz does sound toxic, but don't get me wrong, it's going to be hard. But so am I. If I'm like, we can try it. We can fucking try it. That sounds really fun. That does sound really toxic. I will say. I like the way you guys think.